Hello students. So today we are going to discuss about drugs for glaucoma. So we shall be discussing this topic under the following headings. We shall be having a brief introduction to the disease wherein we'll be covering the definition, the risk factors and the pathophysiology of glaucoma. Then we shall be broadly looking into the drugs for open angle glaucoma, and then we shall be going into the drugs for closed angle glaucoma. So you all know that glaucoma is one of the leading causes of blindness globally. It is defined as a group of diseases characterized by progressive form of optic nerve damage leading to irreversible blindness if it is left undiagnosed and untreated. Most of the glaucomas are associated with raised intraocular tension, that is more than 22 millimeters of mercury. So the risk factors of glaucoma are family history, advanced age, females, the presence of myopia and other systemic diseases like diabetes, hypertension, migraine. So there are the types of glaucoma can be either primary glaucoma, where it is mostly idiopathic. There is no cause that is really known. Then you have got secondary glaucoma, which is actually secondary to some ocular disease or systemic diseases. So the ocular diseases can be either trauma or some tumors of the eye, and secondary diseases can be hypertension, or it can also be because of some drugs like steroids. So the steroids you have to remember, because steroids, when they are instilled as drops, they are more prone to cause glaucoma. On the other hand, the oral steroids, if taken for a long time, they can cause cataract in the eye. This is a difference with the use of steroids by two different routes. Then you have got congenital glaucoma, which is present at the birth itself. So we are mainly concerned about the primary glaucoma. And first, before we go into the pathophysiology of glaucoma, we shall look into the aqueous humor dynamics. Now, regarding the aqueous humor dynamics, you are well aware of the dynamics from the first year classes, where you have learned about it elaborately. So I shall be only discussing the aspect which will be helpful in understanding the mechanism of action of drugs in glaucoma. This is the structure, the anatomy of the eye. I'll just say the parts first. This is the lens, then this is the iris, pupil, cornea, this is the sclera, this is the ciliary body, the ciliary body and the ciliary muscle, and here you have got the ciliary epithelium. And you already know how the aqueous humor is produced. It is produced from the ciliary body, and how the drainage occurs is that it is secreted from the ciliary epithelium. It goes to the posterior chamber of the eye between the iris and the lens, and then through the pupil it goes to the anterior chamber, and it drains to the through the Schlemm's canal, and that is located at the iridocorneal angle. This is the iridocorneal angle, and this drainage which is occurring through the Schlemm's canal is called as the trabecular outflow, and this forms the major outflow of the aqueous humor. And then 10% of the aqueous humor is actually drained into the connective tissue between the ciliary muscle, and then it goes to the episcleral blood vessels. This is called as the uveoscleral outflow, and this forms only 10% of the aqueous humor outflow. So you have seen the secretion and you have seen the outflow. Now there are some receptors about which we have already learned when we were discussing about the various receptors under the ANS. Okay, so these also have a play in the aqueous humor secretion and production, and you will see that once again. Though we have discussed the roles in the respective chapters, we will again have a recap here. So alpha-1 receptors, they are present on the ciliary blood vessels, and they reduce the aqueous production. So they are reducing the blood flow, ocular blood flow, and thus they reduce the aqueous production. Alpha-2 receptors are present on the ciliary epithelium and they reduce the aqueous secretion. Beta-2 receptors are present on the ciliary epithelium and they increase the aqueous secretion by increasing the cyclic AMP. So you can see alpha-2 receptors and beta-2 receptors, they are both present on the ciliary epithelium. Alpha-2 receptors reduce the aqueous secretion, whereas the beta-2 receptors increase the aqueous secretion. Then you have got an important enzyme which is called as the carbonic anhydrase enzyme, which is present within the ciliary epithelial cells. And the role of this enzyme is to generate bicarbonate ions, which is secreted into the aqueous humor. So these are all the receptors which play a role in the production and secretion of aqueous humor. Now, when does this glaucoma result? So in glaucoma, there is either increased secretion or decreased drainage. And it is usually decreased drainage that is occurring in glaucoma. So what is the therapy or what is the aim of the drugs which are used in glaucoma? The drugs aim to either reduce the secretion of aqueous humor or to increase its drainage. So we will be seeing various drugs which will be mainly involved in these two functions. That is either to reduce secretion of aqueous humor or to increase its drainage. So you can see here, if suppose I'm using an alpha-1 receptor agonist, then that will be constricting the blood vessels and reduce the aqueous production. So this will be useful in glaucoma. Similarly, if I'm using a beta-2 blocker, then that will be useful in glaucoma because it will decrease the aqueous secretion. You can see here beta-2 receptors are increasing the aqueous secretion. So if you block them, that will decrease the aqueous secretion. So you can use alpha agonists in glaucoma, whereas you will be using beta-2 blockers, beta blockers in glaucoma. So this you will be seeing in the coming up slides. Now, we'll clinically divide the glaucoma into two types in order for the treatment. That is, one is called as the open angle glaucoma or otherwise called as the wide angle or the chronic simple glaucoma. And the other one is narrow angle or the angle closure or the acute congestive glaucoma. So first we shall be discussing the drugs for open angle glaucoma or the wide angle glaucoma or the chronic simple glaucoma. You should be familiar with the alternative terminologies for this glaucoma. So what is this open angle or the wide angle glaucoma? So as the name suggests, here the angle is open. Now which angle are we talking about? We're talking about the iridocorneal angle. Here the angle is open. So you have already seen when I was discussing about the aqueous humor dynamics that the aqueous humor is draining into the Schlemm's canal through this angle. Suppose this angle is narrow, then the drainage will be compromised. In this case, the angle is okay, the angle is perfect, but there is a problem with the patency of the trabecular network. So here, this is a genetically predisposed degenerative disease affecting the patency of the trabecular meshwork. And this is the form of glaucoma which accounts for majority of the cases. Now, which are the drugs which we are using in the case of open angle glaucoma? These are collectively called as ocular hypotensives because they decrease the intraocular tension. So among this, we have got principally topical drugs like beta blockers, timolol, betaxolol, levobunolol, cartiolol, metoprolol. And you have got alpha adrenergic agonists like dipivefrin, apraclonidine, brimonidine, prostaglandin analogs like latanoprost, bimatoprost, travoprost, carbonic anhydrase inhibitors like dorzolamide, brinzolamide, meiotics like pilocarpine, physostigmine, and other cholinergic agonists like icothiopate. Systemic drugs include carbonic anhydrase inhibitors, acetazolamide. So carbonic anhydrase inhibitors can be given both topically and systemically. The examples are different and you should be knowing both by heart. So we'll start with the topical beta blockers. Examples already I have discussed in the previous slide. These are the first line drugs for glaucoma and one of the most popular category of drugs for glaucoma. So how do they act? They lower intraocular pressure by reducing the aqueous secretion. And how do they do that? By blocking the beta-2 receptors present on the ciliary epithelium. The secondary effect is also to reduce the ocular blood flow. Already beta-2 receptors are present on the ocular blood vessels, and it vasoconstricts them, and by this mechanisms also it can reduce the aqueous humor production. But that is a secondary action. The primary action is by reducing the aqueous secretion by blocking the beta-2 receptors on the ciliary epithelium. These drugs are highly lipophilic. That is why they have got a very good ocular capture. So most of it is captured in the eye itself. However, some amount yet again goes into the systemic circulation also. They do not have much of a significant local anesthetic activity, and hence they will avoid the corneal hypoesthesia and damage. These are the two pharmacokinetic aspects pertaining to the topical beta blockers. Now, the ADRs include both local adverse effects and the systemic adverse effects. The local includes tinging, redness, allergic blepharoconjunctivitis, dryness of the eye. The systemic adverse effects are the major limitations of the topical beta blockers. Now, how does a systemic adverse effect occur? This is because some amount of the drug reaches the meatus, nasal meatus, passing through the nasolacrimal duct. So whenever you instill an eye drop, you can always feel a bitter taste in your oral cavity. This is mainly because of the passing of this drop through the nasolacrimal duct to the inferior meatus and then to the pharynx, and this is how it gets systemically absorbed. Now the systemic ADRs of the topical beta blockers are similar to that of the beta blockers that we studied in the previous class. It is including bronchospasm, especially in asthmatics and COPD patients, bradycardia, accentuation of heart block, and dizziness. Now, this is a major limitation of using the topical beta blockers. Then how can you decrease the systemic effects of the topical beta blockers? This you can do by applying mild pressure on the inner canthus of the eye for about 5 minutes after instilling the drop in the eye. This will prevent the passage to the inferior meatus through the nasolacrimal duct. Now, the important beta blockers included under this category are timolol, betoxolol, and levobinolol. Of this, timolol is the prototype of the ocular beta blockers, and it is non-selective beta blocker. It blocks both beta 1 and beta 2, and it is most widely used topical drug for glaucoma. Its action starts in 1 hour and it is sustained for about 12 hours. And one of the very attractive feature of this drug is that its action lasts for 1 to 2 weeks after discontinuing the drops. The effect will be persisting in the patient even after for some time after you stop this drug. It is available as eye drops of 0.25% to 0.5% concentration. One drop has to be instilled twice a day. Betoxolol, on the other hand, is beta 1 selective blocker. So in this respect, it has got an advantage that it is not producing much of a bronchopulmonary and metabolic side effects like the timolol, because it is more selective on beta 1. So beta 2 mediated adverse effects like bronchoconstriction and metabolic side effects are minimal with betoxolol. But the problem here is that it is less efficacious than timolol. This is because beta receptors in the eye are more of the beta 2 type. And levobinolol is also similar to timolol, but it has got a longer duration of action, and hence it can be given in a single daily dose. Next, we move on to alpha adrenergic agonists. Under this, we have got dipivefrin, apraclonidine, and brimonidine. So the first example is dipivefrin. This you have already studied as the prodrug of adrenaline. So this is a drug which can penetrate the cornea, whereas adrenaline cannot penetrate the cornea. This can penetrate the cornea. It gets hydrolyzed by the esterases in the eye to become adrenaline, and the adrenaline will lower the IOT by increasing the trabecular outflow, increasing the uvoscleral outflow, as well as decreasing the aqueous formation and secretion by the alpha agonistic action. So here the outflow is also increased, and at the same time the production and secretion also is decreased. It has got local redness, burning, and stinging. It doesn't have much of a systemic adverse effects. However, it is only used as an add-on drug to the other drugs. When the control is not achieved by a single drug, this can be used as an add-on drug. The other drugs are apraclonidine. It's a congener of clonidine, which you have already learned, alpha-2 agonist. Okay, so it decreases the aqueous secretion by alpha-2 agonistic action on the ciliary epithelium, and it also increases the uveoscleral outflow. The ADRs include itching, lid dermatitis, follicular conjunctivitis, mydriasis, eyelid retraction, dryness of mouth, irritation and drowsiness, etc. So this is mainly, you can see here, mydriasis, and this mydriasis is occurring mainly because of some amount of alpha-1 action which may be present in this drug. So this is mainly used only for short-term control of intraocular tension after ocular surgery. It is not used for a chronic purpose, only for short-term control of IOT after ocular surgery. Another drug is brimonidine. It is also a clonidine congener, but it is more selective on the alpha-2, and hence you will not have these ADRs like mydriasis, eyelid retraction, which is occurring because of the alpha-1 action. It also has got additional neuroprotective effect, and this is a drug which can be used for both short-term control as well as chronic use in glaucoma. Then we come to prostaglandin analogs. The examples include latanoprost, bimatoprost, unoprostone, and travoprost. Mechanism of action here, it increases the uveoscleral outflow by increasing the permeability of tissues in the ciliary muscle or by action on the episcleral vessels. It also increases the trabecular outflow, but this is less prominent. The most important prostaglandin analog is latanoprost, and it is one of the first choice drugs in the developed countries. So I already told you that topical beta blockers are the first choice drugs for glaucoma. So this prostaglandin analogs are also among the first choice drugs, and because they are a bit costly, they are preferred more in developed countries. You can see that they have got some ADRs like iris pigmentation, increased growth and thickness of eyelashes, and irritation. Occasionally, you can see macular edema in aphakic patients, but overall, their ADR is comparatively less when you compare it to topical beta blockers, which are having systemic adverse effects also. The advantages are good efficacy, once daily application, and absence of systemic side effects. And this makes it very popular in developed countries, which are in patients who can afford this drug. Other prostaglandin analogs are travoprost and bimatoprost, which are equally efficacious or maybe even more effective than latanoprost, and even they are somewhat better tolerated than latanoprost. Then we come to carbonic anhydrase inhibitors. Here we have got the oral drug, that is acetazolamide, and the topical ones, which are dorzolamide and brinzolamide. So I already told you it is inhibiting the carbonic anhydrase enzyme, and thus it decreases the aqueous production. And the drugs are as follows: acetazolamide and dorzolamide. I already told you. The acetazolamide is used to only supplement the ocular hypotensive drugs for short-term indications like angle closure glaucoma, before and after ocular surgery. It is not used on a chronic basis because it is having a lot of ADRs. You can see the ADRs here: paresthesias, anorexias, metabolic disturbances electrolyte disturbances like hypokalemia, acidosis, and even depression can occur in patients. The topical drugs are devoid of systemic effects of acetazolamide, and they are mainly used as add-on drugs to other drugs on a chronic basis. The ADRs include the local ADRs like stinging, burning, itching, and occasionally corneal edema. Another topical drug is carbonic anhydrase inhibitor is brinzolamide. Then you come to miotics. So miotics used to be one of the popular drugs very early, but nowadays they have lost their importance because they are associated with a lot of adverse effects like miosis, conjunctivitis, and this miosis can cause a dim vision. And also it is associated with cholinergic side effects like salivation and urination on systemic absorption. And because of these drawbacks, they have become the last resort or the last option in the management of glaucoma. So if the glaucoma or the IOP is not controlled by all the other measures, then only you add a miotic. And how does the miotic act? The miotic lowers the IOT by increasing the ciliary muscle tone. Already you have learned in the chapter on cholinergic drugs, that these miotics or the cholinergic agonists, they increase the ciliary muscle tone by acting on the M3 receptors. And when the muscle tone is increased, then the patency of the trabecular network is also improved, and thus the trabecular outflow is increased. So miotics are mainly functioning by increasing the trabecular outflow in open angle glaucoma. So we'll see some of the advantages of topical beta blockers, which are now the mainstay management of glaucoma, over miotics, which were once upon a time the main drug for management of glaucoma. So we can see that in case of topical beta blockers, there is no change in pupil size, no diminution of vision in dim light, and in patients with cataract, there is no induced myopathy, no myopia. There is no headache or brow pain. And another thing is that there is not much fluctuations in IOP. Whereas if you use miotics, you can have a fluctuations in the IOP. Also, the topical beta blockers need to be given once daily or twice daily dose, but miotics have to be given at 8-hourly intervals usually, and that is more cumbersome for the patients. These are some of the advantages of the topical beta blockers over miotics. This is just a summary of all the ocular hypertensive drugs that we have studied. It's taken from the Essentials of Medical Pharmacology by K.D. Tripathi. You can refer the same from the textbook. Then we see the current approach in management of the open angle glaucoma. So usually the patient is started on a monotherapy with either topical beta blockers or latinopro. That's a prostaglandin analog. So either of this can be started depending upon the feasibility and the availability, as well as the drug which the patient can afford. Now, if the target IOT is not attained with either of these drugs, what you can do is to shift the other drug. Means if you are starting the patient on a topical beta blocker, then you can shift the patient to latanoprost. Suppose again it is not the IOT is not achieved, then the other drugs can be added on, or we can start the topical miotics and the oral acetazolamide only as the towards the end. If we are not getting the adequate control by adding the other drugs, then only you add the topical miotics and oral acetazolamide. So now we come to the last part, that is drugs for narrow angle glaucoma or the acute and congestive glaucoma. So you can see here, it occurs in individuals with narrow iridocorneal angle and shallow anterior chamber. So here, usually the IOT is remaining under control, but it can rapidly increase when mydriasis occurs in such patients. And it can reach to a very high level of 40 to 60 millimeters of mercury. And if you do not reduce the IOT fast, it can lead to irreversible loss of vision. So what happens here, we just look at how the IOT increases in such patients. So you can see here, this is the cornea, this is the iris, and this is the lens. So in such patients, when the mydriasis occurs, you can see the pupil is wide here. So when mydriasis occurs in an eye with narrow iridocorneal angle, the iris, whenever the mydriasis occurs, iris is actually pulled back and it becomes short and stout. Okay, so the iris starts making contact with the lens, blocking the passage of the aqueous humor from the posterior to the anterior chamber. So this is a posterior chamber which is hardly visible in this case. So the aqueous humor cannot pass from the posterior chamber to the anterior chamber because the iris is almost in contact with the lens here. So what happens is here, pressure will be building up here. In this part, the pressure will build up and behind the iris, which bulges forward and closes the iridocorneal angle further. Already it is narrow and it is further closing the iridocorneal angle, thus blocking the aqueous outflow. So had the angle be wide enough, such a mydriasis will not cause this block, because there will be adequate space even after the iris bulges forwards. You will still have adequate space for the aqueous humor to drain. But here, because of the bulging forward, the narrow iridocorneal angle again obliterates, and thus the passage, the outflow is blocked. This is what is happening. This is what is happening in the case of angle closure glaucoma. Now, how do we manage this? So for managing this, we have to use hypertonic mannitol 20% or glycerol 10%. Both of these are infused IV, and this will decongest the eye by osmotic action. Then you can give acetazolamide 0.5 grams IV. It is not oral at the beginning, it is IV, followed by the oral dose twice daily. Now, miotics can be started like pilocarpine. Once the IOT starts falling after you control with the use of the above two drugs, you can start the pilocarpine drops, which are instilled every 10 minutes. Now, how does this miotic act? Miotic now uh, makes the iris thin and long. So whenever the meiosis occurs, you can see here, this is a meiosis, the pupil is constricted. Whenever the meiosis occurs, the iris is pulled down and becomes long and thin, and this will remove the contact of the iris and the lens. And you can see here the posterior chamber is almost freed, and this will remove the pupillary block. Now, once the miotics are given, and you can add topical beta blockers in addition to bring about further decrease in the IOT. Other drugs like prostaglandin analogs and alpha-2 agonists can be added to bring down the further decrease. So at this point, you have to understand is that we are using drugs in angle closure glaucoma only to bring down the IOP. But the definitive surgery for angle closure glaucoma or the narrow angle glaucoma is surgery, that is iridotomy. We have to do that. That is a definitive treatment for angle closure glaucoma. The drugs are used only to bring down the IOP. Once IOP is brought down, you have to go resort to surgical management in the patient. So in this discussion, we have mainly discussed about the drugs for open angle glaucoma, where we have discussed about all the topical and the systemic drugs. And then we went to the management of angle closure glaucoma, where we have seen the emergency management to bring down the IOP. And we have learned that definitive management of angle closure glaucoma is iridotomy. So from this chapter, you can get questions like classified drugs for open angle glaucoma, can be asked the pharmacology or the use of any category of drugs that we have discussed in this session today. Can be given one name two drugs, like name two carbonic anhydrase inhibitors, which are given topically. Can be asked name two alpha-2 agonists, okay, and so on. So there are many name twos here that is available. You should also be knowing about the receptors which are present on the ciliary epithelium and how each one of them act. Okay, so these are the important questions that can be often asked from this session. So hope you have understood. If you have any doubts, you can contact me personally. Thank you.